Let's try this again. I'm Dan Labbe. He's Chris Fedor. This is Sports Insider, and I think we still have a good show for everyone today. Chris Haynes, Paul Hoynes, Mary Kay Cabot are our guests. We're also going to be joined by Dave Hunt of Hunt Auctions. He's going to tell us about a little event going on during the MLB All-Star Game just down the road in Cincinnati. So we'll talk to him. He's got some things to show us. Let's get right to it. Let's bring in Chris Haynes, somewhere between California and Las Vegas right now, driving to Summer League, joining us via phone. Chris, how are you?
Doing all right, guys. Thanks for having me on your wonderful, excellent show.
Of course. Chris, this DeAndre Jordan thing that went down last night, it seemed like he was going to sign with Dallas. Then the Clippers converge on his house, kind of keep him there until he signs his contract with the Clippers. One of the more bizarre NBA free agency stories that really has ever happened.
That is a 30 for 30 just waiting to happen. You know, that whole committing to the Mavs, having second thoughts, and calling the Clippers, and Doc getting all the boys rounded up, Paul Pierce signing there with the intentions of playing with DeAndre Jordan, and then finding this out, and then they all just go out there. And then the whole emoji thing that just took over of Twitter. It truly should be in a documentary form, like not now, but like right now. This is something that has to be told. We need inside depth analysis. We need everything to go along with that motion picture, because that was clearly the most entertaining sequence of events we've seen on Twitter probably in life ever.
Chris, you have to help me with something, though. I know Paul Pierce has mad game when it comes to on the court. Can you explain his emoji game going with the rocket ship? What's he doing putting a rocket ship out there? I don't get that one.
I don't even know how he got that on Twitter. Is there an emoji for that? Like to put that? I don't know where he got that. That was. You can tell his Twitter game is lacking. Hey, but the one I love was Rod Woodson, the assistant coach for the Clippers, putting out a swimming emoji, like a person swimming, like on his way. That was crazy. That was some of the most entertaining social media interactions I've seen in a while, man. That was definitely classic. And I mean, you know, but hey, just talking about how DeAndre handled it. Look, I have no problem with a young guy having change of heart, change his mind. That's it. You know, there's no, you know, like it or not, it was a verbal agreement. Yes, you don't like for them to think, you don't like the people to change course or renege, but it was a verbal agreement. It's that he didn't have his John Hancock written down. Mm-hmm. With that being said, I do have a problem with the way DeAndre handled it, not contacting the Mavs, not being up front and letting them know that, hey, I'm going to reverse course. You know, give the organization the respect and allow Cuban and those guys to move on and try to make amends of what has just been a catastrophe for them. So that's the problem I do have. Not with his decision-making, but just the way he handled it.
It looked like Paul Pierce went to Google Images and just found a rocket ship. All right, let's look at the Cavaliers. Kevin Love, of course, signed his contract today, but the guy everybody's waiting for, Chris, is Tristan Thompson. It appears that both sides are sort of in an impasse, and neither side is really in a hurry to meet the other side.
Yeah, we'll see who gets their way. I got my opinion on that, but you know, I mean, who, you know, we knew this was going to take a while. I mean, I obviously have. You look at Rich's representatives' track record. Rich Paul, Mark Termini, those guys are some hounds when it comes to negotiating contracts, trying to get the best possible deal for their clients. So, you know, I knew this. And then when I got word, even before free agency started, I got word of, you know, LeBron was going to wait until everybody else was signed. I knew. I'm like, okay, this is set the table up for a long, expensive process. I still think and believe that a deal will get done relatively soon. I'm not so confident in that, but that's the way I feel right now, because sides are not that far apart. You know, I think, you know, I know Tristan Thompson and those guys want Draymond Green type of money. They may end up getting it. The Cavs right now are a little bit reluctant to, so we'll see who folds in the end.
Chris, I'd love to just tell Rich and Tristan Thompson, look, man, you want Draymond Green money? Sure, that's fine. Why don't you play like Draymond Green then? Why don't you have the kind of impact for your team that Draymond had? It's very, very frustrating.
Well, they have different impacts for their team. If Draymond was with the Warriors, his impact probably wouldn't be, as impactful as it would be if he was with the Warriors. And that's the same thing with Tristan Thompson. So, look, is there another team that's going to offer Tristan more money than the Cavs? Probably not, because probably would have had an offer sheet out there already. But, they're going to use what they have. The leverage that they have. They know LeBron James wants this guy back in the fold, and they know, Rich represents both guys. So, like I said, we'll see who pays. And as of right now, my money is on Rich and those guys coming through with a pretty awesome deal for Tristan.
Chris, are we at a point yet, though, where it's affecting the Cavs doing business with other free agents?
No, I think because you can, like Mo Williams and those guys, they've been wanting Mo for a while. I've talked about it, written about it. They tried to see about obtaining him in the middle of last year when he was with the Minnesota Timberwolves, and Mo Williams was possibly going to negotiate a buyout, and the Cavaliers would have been that team. They got guys, even right now, I wouldn't be surprised if they have a guy right now that's waiting in the wings that has already agreed, but they got to wait till these other dominoes fall into place before they sign those guys. So I wouldn't say it's hindering them, because you have to multitask with free agency. You can't just stick to one guy and try to hammer out that guy. They're talking with Dellavedova, J.R. Smith, and probably a couple other guys to make sure they're still ready to be in the fold once they get things situated with Tristan.
Chris, what does adding Mo Williams mean for J.R. Smith? Because obviously Mo is a guy that can shoot. He can hit shots consistently. Kind of can fill that J.R. Smith role a little bit off the bench. Does it mean anything for him?
Look, the Cavs can probably try to use that as leverage, but they're two different players. Yes, Mo can light it up and score in bunches, but they need Mo more so as a backup point guard, facilitator, player like that. You still need that gunner in J.R. Smith. But by having Mo on the roster, you can say, hey, J.R., we can't pay you what you think you should be paid. But what we can offer you is a great opportunity to contend for a championship. And if you take less money or even less years, this will still be a good fit for you. So I think they still want him, but I think they're going to use Mo as a way of saying, hey, we'd like to have you, but, as you see, we don't need you, but we'd like to have you. So I think that's fair. But they do want him back.
Earlier today, Kevin Love on the Players Tribune did a video. He said his contract is inked and ready to go. He's looking forward to recovering from his shoulder injury and getting back to just playing basketball and not worrying about all those ancillary things. He also mentioned in that video, though, Chris, that his conversation with LeBron James poolside, the well-publicized one, he said that was important, that him and LeBron had some honest conversations. What do you think those conversations were like? What do you think they were talking through this offseason?
I don't know. I would just be speculating. I think it was telling that he said he reached out to LeBron James. I know everybody started jumping out saying, I thought LeBron was not going to recruit anybody. That was important that Kevin Love made that clear, that it was him that reached out to him, and they happened to be in L.A. at the same time. And so they were able to talk about some things. I mean, like I said, I don't know. Obviously, they're not the best of friends. Obviously, they didn't get along well off the court, as fans would hope. But I just think that these are two grown men, two great basketball players who want to win a championship. And so I think they're talking about all of those things and what it's going to take to move forward to that type of success and get along on the court. And so I think that's all it was all about. If I would say anything else, I would be speculating. But, I think they understand that they need each other to obtain that goal. And that's good for the Cavaliers organization.
So that being said, Chris, last question. Is there any chance, 2-3 years down the road that Kevin Love is not with the Cavaliers?
Yeah, there's a chance of that. There's definitely a chance of that. Everybody can get traded. And, it's going to, of course, have to be with the Cavaliers' decision if they're going to move him or not, because Kevin Love has a player option in the final year of the deal. But we'll see, man. They traded him and gave away a franchise player in Andrew Wiggins, you have to kind of see this thing through long term. I don't see a scenario where, unless his game just falls off dramatically, I don't see a scenario where they'll give up on him relatively soon.
All right, that is Chris Haynes, our Cavaliers beat reporter. He's en route to Las Vegas. He'll have complete coverage of the Vegas Summer League and whatever else happens with the Cavaliers between now and the beginning of the season. It's been a fun offseason so far. Thanks for the time, Chris.
Anytime, guys. Take care.
All right, so that is Chris Haynes. We're going to have Mary Kay Cabot on here momentarily to talk a little bit of Browns football because we have a training camp date.
Yes.
It's always exciting, right?
Yes.
When you know training camp is going to open, it'll be June 30th. 11 practices open to the public. Of course, the Orange and Brown scrimmage in Columbus. They're going to go to Buffalo for a couple of practices. This is the time to feel good about the Browns, right?
Yeah, until you actually start seeing them play a little bit. Sure, this is where you can be optimistic and you can be hopeful and you can start thinking about possibilities for the team. And I'm very, very interested to see what they end up doing at some positions here. And mainly, Dan, it comes down to quarterback. Everybody knows that. You can talk about the defense all you want to. You can talk about the running game, the offensive line. But if Josh McCown gives you anything, if Johnny Manziel gives you anything, then you got a chance to make up some ground in the AFC North. If they don't, then you're going to be residing in the basement again.
That's what these weeks in July are for, though.
That's
Talk
right.
yourself into things. All right, let's bring in our Browns beat reporter, Mary Kay Cabot, via phone. Mary Kay, how are you?
I'm doing great, guys. How you doing?
Good. Mary Kay, let's talk about Terrell Pryor. Let's talk ourselves into Terrell Pryor. He's never played receiver before in the NFL, but he's one of the few guys in that wide receiving core right now that's about 6'2", 6'3". Does he have a legitimate shot to make this roster as a wide receiver?
Actually, yeah, he is. He's actually about 6'4". So they don't have that kind of size. If he can demonstrate that he can catch the ball, and he's working hard on that right now with guys like Antonio Brown from the Steelers and Randy Moss and actually Plaxico Burress. If he can figure out how to catch the ball, he might actually be onto something. Now, when he said last year to the Seahawks that he couldn't catch the ball, that was a man talking like he wanted to still play quarterback. Nobody's going to admit that if you still want to play quarterback. So I think he's athletic enough to get the job done, but, you have to demonstrate good hands. I think it's going to be hard. I have talked to several people in the league that have said, you got to try him as a tight end. So who knows what will happen when the Browns get him into camp and see what he can do. The coaches have to get their hands on him first. They're not the ones really necessarily that acquired him. That would have been Ray Farmer. So when the coaches get their hands on him, they might say, hey, let's try him this way or that way. If he can make himself useful as a pass catcher and on some special teams, then maybe they can consider keeping him around as a third quarterback and be able to play around with their roster in that way. But he would definitely have to show that he can do other things.
Mary Kay, you mentioned it. It was Ray Farmer's decision. I mean, he's in charge of the personnel, but have you gotten any indication that John DeFilippo, the new offensive coordinator who was with Terrell in Oakland, had any sort of say in this or pushed Mike Pettin, Ray Farmer towards this kind of decision, like, hey, give this guy a chance, he's got some athleticism here?
I would have to think that he would have had input in this. I would think that the first person that you would go check with, unless he was the one that actually initiated it, would be John DeFilippo, and I don't have a handle on how it all got started or what the genesis of it was yet, but you would have had to have spent time talking to John DeFilippo before you would make this acquisition. So, yes, I think he was consulted, or he did the consulting, and I would think that that he might have some thoughts on how Terrell could be used. Right now, they're not going down that quarterback road at all, but it has to be something that crosses their minds, of course. If you can save a roster spot like that. But first of all, they just want to see what he can do at wide receiver. They're not planning to keep him around as the third quarterback. That's not just as a third quarterback. That's not in the cards. He's got to be either a wide receiver or some kind of a pass catcher, however they might decide to use.
And so, Mary Kay, let's look at this wide receiver group. Right now, in your mind heading into camp, who is the best wide receiver on this roster?
Well, there are some candidates for that depending on how they fare in this offense. In talking to Dwayne Bowe at minicamp, he feels that the way he will be used and showcased in this offense should bring out the best in him, and he feels he can return to his, sort of 2010 form when he caught an NFL high 15 touchdown catches. So it remains to be seen if he can be that guy again. If he can, then I think he climbs pretty high up to the top of the chart in terms of being able to be their number one guy. He still feels like he has that capability. We've seen some really great things out of Andrew Hawkins, but he's almost a little bit more of a role player. You got those smaller, scrappy guys that can do those kinds of things for you. I would say that Dwayne Bowe is the number one candidate right now if he can, get back to his touchdown catching ways.
Mary Kay, so much of the conversation is about the quarterback position, the battle between Josh McCown and Johnny Manziel, and rightfully so. I mean, in the NFL, your ceiling is often determined by quarterback play and your head coach. But aside from the quarterback group, where would you say the biggest questions reside with this team?
Well, we've already been talking about that spot a little bit. It's in the skill positions on offense, the tight ends and the wide receivers, the guys that are supposed to go out there and catch passes and catch touchdown passes for you. And I think that there's plenty of guys that can get you to the 20, but you have to find somebody that can make it happen in the red zone. And, of course, they have Brian Hartline, and I think, he should fare pretty well in this offense too. But you need to find guys. I mean, you don't have the Jordan Cameron or the Josh Gordon anymore that you can just throw the ball up there and those guys are going to go get it and catch touchdowns. You don't have that guy right now. So they're going to need the Rob Hauslers to come through. You're going to need Gary Barnes to get more involved this year in the passing game. You're going to need those other guys that we talked about to step up. That's the biggest question mark. When I look at most other positions, again, besides quarterback, I think they're pretty well set in almost every other area. In fact, I think they're fairly deep at a lot of those areas. When you talk about now defensive line, secondary, offensive line, some of those key positions, they're really great, in some of those areas. But it's just in terms of, they had the 12 touchdown catches last year, and that's just not going to cut it.
Mary Kay, the Browns don't want this impression that there's a quarterback battle, so we're going to pretend that there isn't. Let's take it out of the equation. What battle, aside from that one that may not exist, are you most excited about watching in training camp?
There really aren't too many battles this year. I mean, when you look at it, there are some spots that I think are going to be intriguing. One of those would be looking at Justin Gilbert and that, second cornerback spot. Can Justin Gilbert, come up off the mat and be the number 8 overall pick that he was drafted to be? So I think that's one to really watch. And you've got some other guys there that are really going to try to win that job, the K1 Williams and that kind of thing. But can Justin cut it? That's something to watch in this camp. The other things are, the pass rushers. There are a collection of guys there that can really do some great things. But, hey, can Barkevious Mingo become a pass rusher, or is he the cover guy? Can Nate Orchard, can he get out there? He had 18.5 sacks as a senior. Can he get it done on this level? So the edge rusher position is another one that I think is very intriguing. Armani Bryant coming back from a torn ACL. So that's another good one to watch. Again, those receiver spots, in my opinion, are pretty wide open. Someone could come in there and really take that job over. And then, of course, running back, they've got depth there, but what they really would appreciate and what they would have liked last year is for someone to really step up and get the hot hand. So can that be a Duke Johnson, or will they let Duke Johnson kind of focus on third down a little bit and catching the ball out of the backfield, use him as more of a change-up guy and pound away on first and second down with some type of combination of Isaiah Crowell or Terrence West, Glenn Winston even. So those are some of the other things to watch.
Based on what you've heard and maybe even based on last year, who do you think gets the first crack at that running back job? Is it Isaiah Crowell? Is it Terrence West?
I'm thinking Isaiah Crowell for right now. And I think, I think in part because there have been, just some maturity issues on the part of Terrence West. I think if he can demonstrate that he's doing everything he needs to do to be a professional, showing up on time, being consistent, and working hard in practice, and studying and doing all those kinds of things, then I think he'll be right in the mix. But for right now, for some reason, I just kind of get the vibe that Isaiah Crowell has a little bit of an edge on him, and again, I think that it will start out that way. But the opportunity is there for someone else to step up and take it.
All right, Mary Kay, thanks for the time.
Thank you, guys.
All right, Mary Kay Cabot, our Browns beat reporter, a few weeks away from Browns training camp. Like I said, this is the time where we kind of talk ourselves into things, try and get excited because the Browns haven't lost any games. No one's gotten hurt,
That's
I don't
right.
think.
Cross your fingers on that one. Man.
Yeah, exactly. Just trying to get yourself feeling good about the Browns. And there are some things, I think, to feel good about, mostly on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I think all of them are on the defensive side of the ball because I think Mary Kay kind of hit on it there, Dan. You don't really know what you're going to get with the wide receivers. You don't have a solidified running back at this point. You've got a bunch of different guys. You just don't have that one guy that really pops out. And here's the problem. If you have a quarterback situation of Josh McCown and Johnny Manziel, and that's still a giant question mark, and you've got questions around all of those guys, you ask yourself, who's that guy that's going to step up and take pressure off of those guys or make things easier on those guys? Because Josh McCown's not going to elevate anybody around him, and Johnny Manziel's not going to elevate anybody around him. Sometimes you need other guys around them to help the quarterback along the way, and you ask yourself, who's that guy going to be? Is Brian Hartline going to do that? No. Dwayne Bowe's not going to do that, and you don't have a featured running back either to be the foundation of your offense. So the question is, how are you going to consistently move the football? I know how the Browns are going to stop people defensively, but how are they going to move the ball? I don't have that answer.
Yeah, they're going to try and run this old school 3 yards in a cloud of dust, I guess, offense, and that just doesn't work in the NFL.
Without a featured running back. It can work if you have a guy like Arian Foster, if you've got a guy like Adrian Peterson, Jamal Charles, you can get by with those kinds of guys. But Terrence West is going to be the focal point of the offense? I find that hard to believe. Duke Johnson, little Duke, he's going to be the focal point of the offense? I find that hard to believe. They just don't have that guy.
All right, let's go ahead and bring in our next guest. He's from Hunt Auctions, David Hunt, joining us. They're going to be down in Cincinnati for the All-Star festivities. David, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. All right, so tell us a little bit about this experience going on in Cincinnati. It's a few days around the All-Star game, and folks, I guess, can bring in memorabilia, and it's almost like, what was that PBS show, the auction show? Whatever.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes,
People can bring their stuff in and have it appraised. You can give it a value. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a great event. I mean, every year Major League Baseball, brings us to the host city of the All-Star game. Whether you're a fan of the Reds or not, it's something that really any baseball fans in Ohio are going to want to come see because it comes to each city so infrequently, obviously. And, one thing, we do the live auction here, and that's exciting, but we started doing it about 12 years ago where we let fans bring down whatever they have, whatever great baseball items they want to find out their worth or their value at no charge. So it's always interesting to see whatever region we go to in the country, what'll walk in and what it's worth. And for a few lucky people that have a really special piece, sometimes we sort of allow them or invite them to include it in the auction. But again, it's free with no obligation to do that.
David, have you gotten the sense in recent years that more and more baseball fans are bringing stuff from current guys, like they've latched on to certain guys currently, or do you get the sense that they're more focused on the nostalgia and the Babe Ruth and the Ted Williams and the Pete Rose and guys like that?
That's a good question. I think we do the auctions for the NFL as well, and I do think that in baseball there is more of a tendency to go, or at least have a mixture, a balance of vintage versus current things, where in the NFL it's really interesting. It's very heavily weighted towards the current players. And I think that's a generational thing. I think the game of baseball lends itself more. You can compare era to era, player to player. Your grandfather took you to this game, and now you're going to watch Joey Votto instead of watching Joe Morgan. So it is interesting to see, but obviously we welcome anybody to bring anything in, and there's always disappointments, just like there's excitement where somebody invariably will bring a piece down that's worth a lot of money they didn't know. Unfortunately, there's lots of people that bring things down that think they're going to retire or, get a second home on or whatever it might be, and we tell them it's unfortunately not authentic. But what we do tell people is, look, you want to be educated. Whatever it is or isn't, whether you're going to sell it or not, you want to know what it is, you can either preserve it or make sure not to pass it on to somebody else with incorrect information.
I'm wondering, obviously there's been so much scandal around baseball. Barry Bonds, Pete Rose is always in the news for his gambling. And of course there was a recent story about him as a player manager. How does that impact the value of these things? Does that, in some cases, actually help value of like a Pete Rose piece of memorabilia, or does that hurt it?
A really good question. I think time really bears that out, if you will, ranging from back in the 19-teens with the Joe Jackson, the Black Sox scandal, where that became infamous, literally, mostly by things in popular culture like movies and books, and then it's passed on and can add value onto things or unfortunate circumstances in the history of the game. But then there's other things like the steroid scandals, which those have had a direct impact on the value of those players, and rightfully so. I mean, they did something that was wrong, however you judge them or not, and the values that relate to their items has absolutely plummeted. I mean, Barry Bonds and some of the others that were convicted of it, or allegedly convicted, their values really went down where they were very, very high before that, those announcements were made public.
David, me personally, I have a memorabilia room. I have an armoire. I like to collect a bunch of different things, and I usually like the rare stuff. I like shoes. I like golf balls. I like golf gloves, things that you can't always get. What's the strangest thing maybe that you've seen come across you guys that you've been asked to appraise?
We have definitely had some very, very interesting things over the years. I mean, we once had a group, and this, I'm not actually making this up, of frogs, literally African frogs, that were taxidermied in the form of a complete baseball team. I'm not even kidding. And they brought it in, and I was speechless. I didn't know what to say to that one. But then we've had things walked in. One year we literally had a client that brought in and opened up a bag and laid in front of us Lou Gehrig's 1937 Yankees jersey, which we ended up selling for that client for $400,000. So it really runs the gamut as to what people have. And the one thing is, baseball is more deeply rooted in Ohio than just about anywhere in this country, especially, going all the way back to the Red Sox. So, we're really interested to see what people might have out here and hopefully be able to help them know better what it's worth.
Wait, what did the frogs go for?
I think the frogs brought her $500, believe it or not.
Wow.
Not even 100 a frog.
Those are some cheap toads.
All right, so we're about 4 hours from Cincinnati. I'm sure some folks from up here in the Cleveland area are going to make the trip down for some of the All-Star festivities. Tell them what they can do if they have some taxidermied frog baseball team that they want you to look at. Tell them what they can do to kind of get that set up.
Yeah, sure. They can certainly contact us through the website at huntauctions.com to either set up an appointment if they want to know exactly what time to come in, or if they come down to Major League Baseball's Fan Fest. It's at the Convention Center right downtown in Cincinnati. Obviously, there's admission charge to Fan Fest in general, but they just find our area at the Hunt Auctions booth, and our experts will be there. Again, completely free of charge, no appointment necessary, and we really look forward to it.
All right, David Hunt from huntauctions.com. We appreciate you calling in and taking the time out.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. Taxidermied frogs.
Unbelievable.
Who knew?
When I asked that question, I really did not think I was going to get taxidermied frogs.
Yeah, nobody could have guessed that.
No chance.
I wonder if they feel better than that. Well, no, we won't go there.
There was somebody, and I'm not going to reveal his name, but we were together. It was Game 5 of the Palace, right? Remember LeBron's big explosion game, one of the greatest games of LeBron's career. There was somebody that I was with that took his arm sleeve. I swear.
Okay.
His sweaty arm sleeve that he was wearing throughout the game. He's like, I'm going to take this and I'm going to sell it eventually. I got a few guesses as to who that is. Okay, all right.
We'll get to that after the show. All right, let's bring in our final guest, our Indians beat reporter, Paul Hoynes, joining us. Hoynesy, what's going on?
Hi, guys. How you doing today?
Doing all right. We just talked to a guy who told us about a baseball team of taxidermied frogs. Don't ask. The Indians, Hoynesy, I feel like they missed a big opportunity in Pittsburgh. They were playing well. They got out to that lead on Sunday, and then they gave that game away. They lost the next night. But all that said, they've won 7 out of 10. There's injuries piling up in the Central all of a sudden. Are they still somehow in this thing?
You know, I know they wanted to try to, get on a run just before the break and get as close to 500 as they could. That's but with the two wild cards now, you're probably never really out of it. But I think they're going to have to make a decision. I mean, how much are they in this thing? And that's going to determine what moves, if any, they make by the July 31st deadline and the August 31st deadline.
Do you think the Indians will, and maybe should they, look at the landscape of the AL Central and say, well, Alex Gordon's going to be out for a pretty long while, Miguel Cabrera going to be out for a pretty long while, and do you think those kinds of realities should factor into their decision-making process when it comes to the trade deadline and what moves they should or could make?
Chris, I think what has to determine what determines what they'll do is how they're playing. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they're going to be looking at the other teams right now. I mean, if you listen to Francona and Antonetti, like, that's the worst thing they can do. They have to concentrate on what they can do. And so far we've seen that they're playing well against Houston, but historically they played well against Houston. Pittsburgh, 3 close games in Pittsburgh. They should have won at least, 2 out of 3, but they found out, what a contender looks like. And it's just, I don't know. They just seem to be treading water to me. This team hasn't really shown the ability to get on a streak. I mean, they're wasting a ton of good pitching. And it's just a frustrating club to watch because you just don't know if they have enough offensive talent to be a contender and to even, get close to the postseason.
Hoynesy, this pitching staff, with Trevor Bauer last night, they became the first 4 guys, Salazar, Bauer, Carrasco, and Kluber, with 100-plus strikeouts before the All-Star break. That's kind of the biggest thing with this season. They're getting this great pitching, and right now it's going to waste. Yeah,
it is, Dan. It's and it's great pitching, but, strikeouts don't make great pitching. What Salazar did in Pittsburgh, you got a 3-0 lead against a contender, and you explode in the 5th inning. You give up 5 runs, and that's the ball game. I mean, that's, it doesn't matter if you struck out 16 guys. I mean, he could, and he only lasted 5 innings, but that's the key to pitching to me. You could strike out 1 million guys, and Kluber has, and he's, what is he, 4-9? So, you have to have every element of a good baseball team to be a contender, and right now they don't. They've got a bullpen, they've got some pitching, but offensively, this is a team that is, it's lucky if they score 3 runs a night.
Hoynesy, the Indians got 1 All-Star, Jason Kipnis. Do you think they deserved a second?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part of that.
Do you think they deserved a second All-Star this year?
No, I don't. When you're a 4th place club, you're not playing 500 ball. You're lucky to get. You're lucky they've got the rule that every team has to be represented in the All-Star game. I mean, I'm not saying Kipnis didn't deserve it. He's in the first half, he's been the best second baseman in the American League. But I don't think you can whine about not having a second All-Star. I mean, if you want a second All-Star, be in first place. Going into the break in the AL Central, then you'll get more than one All-Star.
Paul, going back to the offense, I mean, we have this discussion every single year with this team. They just don't score enough runs. They've gone out and tried to address it, but I mean, at what point do we kind of look at the front office and say, look, you guys aren't adding that 1 or 2 pieces that you need?
Well, and that's exactly right. I mean, big time hitters cost big time money. You you're going to struggle when you bring up your top prospect. He's a shortstop, and you put him in the number 2 spot, and he's he's kind of a he's not going to be a run producer. I mean, he's in the number 2 spot. That's where he's hit all his career, or lead off. But that's your big contribution to the offense. A guy that's, when he's going good, is probably going to hit 270, 280, and he's going to move the ball around the infield or the outfield and spray the ball around. But he's not going to drive in 90 runs. He's not going to drive in 95 runs. Their big addition this winter was Moss, and we've seen this guy before. This is Mark Reynolds. This is kind of an all or nothing guy that he's gonna when he's on, he's going to drive in 5 runs a game. But the strikeouts, with runners in scoring position, hurts. The same with Santana. We've seen this guy. We've seen his act last year. Now he's extended into a 3-month slump. So, you've got to make a significant move. And they've had 2 years to do this. They've had this pitching staff together for 2 years. They've been on the cusp of making a big move. And I think because they got burned with Bourne and Swisher, ownership kind of pulled in their horns, and they're just treading water now.
All right, Hoynesy, I got to ask you one question, kind of off topic here. Did you see the slider, ESPN body issue thing? We're talking about that here around the office. That was strangely disturbing. I don't know why, because the guy doesn't wear pants normally, but I was really bothered by this.
Yeah, I've got to talk to Slider. I think he's gone off the edge here. He's gone over the line. I don't know if he's going to go for the cover shot or not. What is it?
Well, Hoynesy, we had our guy Dave Pekowitz made a cover of the ESPN body issue with you. We just showed it on screen. We're gonna have to send it to you. It's
that'll keep you up at night. Give you nightmares.
It's something. We're gonna take that down to Cincinnati and get appraised at this auction thing we talked about before you came on.
Hoynesy, if they did a media body issue, would you want to be in that?
God, no. You know what? The best way to see this body is like from a mile away.
All right, Paul Hoynes, our Indians beat reporter. Hoynesy, as always, it's great talking to you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, that was Paul Hoynes. Mary Kay Cabot joined us earlier, as did Chris Haynes. Dave Hunt as well. If you missed any of the show, we'll have it archived for you later at cleveland.com/sports. For Chris Fedor, I'm Dan Labbe.